is Kimmy. Here at Worth the War, we're about sparing hearts by rethinking our approach to love and relationship. I can only tell you that I'm really honored to get to speak with Trey and Lea from Stronger Marriages. Is that correct? Is it marriages or Stronger Marriage? Okay. And one of the reasons I'm super excited about this is that I get a lot of correspondence about people who are really tired and giving up on healthy love and relationship. And while a lot of our focus is really about trying to help people avoid abusive situations, it would be really short-sighted of me not to include the fact that there is great hope for healthy love and marriage as well. And I'm gonna ask a few questions of Trey and Lea, and we'll go from there. So
we are honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. You know, sometimes I forget to stop talking and breathe and say, you guys share.
You're good.
So tell us a little bit about what got you guys started in this area.
Well, we are in full-time ministry. We have been our whole entire married life. And so we just, we've always been passionate about marriage and family and teaching our church family about healthy marriage and family. And we never really went looking to be, workshop speakers and have this big social media following. We didn't go looking for that. Somehow or another, we feel like it just fell into our laps, which means it was a God thing. And he just opened up so many doors. And it really just let us know that people were searching. People were searching for the hope of healthy marriages that is out there.
We've loved doing marriage stuff for 30 years of marriage. We as a young couple, we attended every marriage retreat, marriage conference, anything on marriage, we would go. Somebody was showing marriage film strips on how to be better husbands. We went as a young couple. And we've always loved marriage and just kind of the relationship of two people becoming one. And about 12 years ago, we did a retreat for a group of people on marriage. And we just kind of said, well, that was pretty good material. It would be nice if we could, all this material we prepared could do it somewhere else. And it may have been a month or two later and somebody randomly called and said, we were at that retreat. Would you come over to our church and do the retreat here? And then it just kind of took off from there. Again, we didn't go looking for it. It kind of happened. The doors have just kind of opened. It's kind of a part-time gig, I guess you would call it. It's not what we do full-time. But we think because of the following we do have, and because so many people are looking, it's something we have to be involved in. I think to just go, we're not gonna speak about marriage would be wrong, because there's just so many people looking for answers, and we feel like we've got some. We don't have all the answers, but we have some answers we think that could help.
When you think about like the things that you've gotten to experience because of this calling, do you feel that it has to be a continually changing process because of culture? Or do you think that it's kind of age old, the same things that you saw, even when you were just starting out 30 some years ago to now are about the same?
Let me say, what we find is much of our material has grown and matured and changed with culture. 10 years ago, cell phones were really no big deal. They were just, kind of getting serious on stuff. And now cell phones play a huge distraction in relationships. They can they can also help your relationships. You can use cell phones for a great part of blessing your marriage, blessing your children. But also cell phones have become not just a distraction, but a way to connect with people or things you shouldn't do. And so we've had to change a lot of focus in, hey, someone needs to address cell phones and healthy cell phone usage in families with kids, with spouses, some rules. So it's ever evolving as culture evolves. And we've always kind of got to keep our thumb on that. But as for the basic principles, they're the same, and those things never change. It's love is an action, and you show your love by action. You can say it all day long, but it is seriously about showing that you love your kids and your family and your spouse and everything else.
That's a place that your stuff has jumped off the screen to me, is my primary belief is that when we define love as a feeling, we leave ourselves open to abuse. and a disconnection between ourselves and other people, even if we want good relationship. So if we look at the landscape of relationship in today's culture, what do you see as the biggest challenges that people are coming up against? And you can put in the word marriage in that, since that's your specialty.
I think when we were discussing this, we both said, people are going into marriage and relationships with unrealistic expectations, and they're not educating themselves about what marriage is really like and really about, pre-marriage. People just have this idea of, the Hallmark movie kind of love, and that's what love is. It's all about, romance and flowers and sunshine all the time. And that's not real life. That's not realistic. And so that's a huge challenge, is that people are they're just not prepared.
Yeah, there's a need for education. Couples go into marriage knowing everything about a wedding. They're so prepared for a wedding. They know who walks in when and colors. They've spent hours on wedding stuff, and they really know nothing about marriage. And they just, it is so essential that you spend some time educating yourself on how to do marriage, not just how to do a wedding, because people will forget your wedding. They really will. That, as much as special as you want it to be, the wedding is not what matters. It's the wrapping paper around the gift, and the marriage is the gift, and that's what you want to last, and that's what matters. And going into a marriage uneducated makes it really, really tough. And when you can spend a little time educating yourself on what to expect, what to plan for, what to know might come up, that hey, I need to be watching for these little red flags. Anytime you can do that in any relationships, it's going to be beneficial and a blessing, whether it's a dating relationship, an engaged relationship, engagement, or a marriage. It's anytime you can educate yourself, it is just a huge blessing.
That's absolutely beautiful. I think that I've been married 33 years myself, and I think that the things that I really look at that I have learned is that almost everything that I thought about a healthy, thriving relationship was absolutely false. So I love the way that you guys bring about a practical answer to that. And I also love that you don't create expectations in you telling us not to have expectations, which I think sometimes is what people who want to go out there and make an impact, I think sometimes that's what we do. We kind of just create a different set of them. And I think you guys really leave it open. I noticed that on your podcast, which I will be posting down below and giving you guys links to, they really do a great job of bringing up the issue, kind of illuminating some of the things that are foundationally problematic about certain things, but then they allow you to make your own judgments, which is pretty great, pretty helpful.
Yeah, every marriage and every relationship is a little bit different, and while the principles generally work, not everything works for every marriage. And so, what works for us in our love languages may not be another couple's love languages.
What if there's like a lot of people that I work with are either people who have been out and have experienced abuse, or they're raising children and they want to avoid some of the things that, quite frankly, because of cell phones, because of other kinds of expectations that are building up in the culture, they're trying to kind of shore up approach to love and relationship that will less likely land them with a toxic partner. So if there was something that you guys would like to share that you wish you had known before you entered into the marriage, or something that you would make sure you did make sure, and I don't know if you have a family, but that you made sure that you prepared your kids for in relationship.
I think that so many people, we talked about it before, they're ready for the wedding and they spend all this time preparing for the wedding and they don't prepare for the marriage itself. And so I think I would just tell couples, pre-marriage counseling is so important. Find a trusted counselor, minister, whatever, mentor that can counsel you pre-marriage, because we didn't have near enough pre-marriage counseling, even as we grew up in healthy homes and all of that, but we still didn't go into marriage as prepared as we should have been. And we had to learn a lot of things the hard way. So premarital counseling was not a thing when we were back in the late 80s when we got married. And we've had
somebody handed us a book and we read it. Somebody handed us some cassette tapes. And for our young listeners, you can Google what a cassette tape is. And we listened to those running down the road. And I'm just so thankful for that, because those were so beneficial. But we did not have a lot. And I think today, engagement is important in relationships. Dating, that is the time that you need to be ruthlessly evaluating that relationship before you say, I do. Yes. And if there are red flags, don't hesitate to go, hey, we got to follow up with this red flag. If there is a personality flaw, if there's something that you're thinking, hey, I'm a little worried about, an anger, a short temper, or maybe whatever it is, that's what engagement's for. It is for evaluating, not just blind praising of how awesome you are. Use that for a time to let's work on some of these things that I'm a little worried about or concerned about before you go into marriage, because so many couples will go, yeah, I know he or she has a short temper, but we're going to work on that after we get married. Well, you don't fix that after you get married. It better be done before if you want it fixed.
It usually gets worse, if anything. Look for those red flags for sure. Things that should be deal breakers in relationships before marriage. Because as Trey said, people go in thinking, oh, they'll change, or, whatever. We're just going to love each other through it. That's another unrealistic expectation.
Another thing that we dealt with, and Lee may want to follow up on this a little bit more. We thought the first few years of marriage that our differences were a negative thing instead of a positive thing, meaning we dated for 4 years and we had a long engagement, but we also knew we were very different from one another. And we spent the first few years of marriage pretty miserable, in a sense that I thought that I needed to fix her to be more like me, because I like to go out and I like to have fun. I'm extroverted and let's go do stuff. And you just need to hang out with people more. And she would look at me and go, hey, you've got some flaws you need to work on. You're not like me, and you need to. And when we finally figured out that, of course, there are some little personality things that we work through and we fix. But when we figured out my job is not to fix her and her job is not to fix me, to love each other for who we are, we kind of realized that my weaknesses just so happened to be most all of her strengths. And that her weaknesses were my strengths. And we actually made a really good, strong couple. And if we'd have been just alike, we would have some major flaws in there of things we wouldn't be able to do well, that we do really well now, because they're either her wheelhouse or my wheelhouse, because we aren't different. And today, a lot of people will tell you, hey, you need to find somebody that's just like you. And it's like, no, you don't have to find somebody just like you. Find somebody you can love and live with the differences and become compatible with that. And so marrying somebody just like you is not always the greatest thing in the world. That might drive you crazy.
That's really wise. I think that you nailed it right there. The word compatible doesn't mean the same. It's kind of like unity doesn't require sameness, either does compatibility. I like to think about marriage in terms of like leaning into each other. And if you're both coming from the same direction, you really can't hold each other up in the middle. So I think that's really, really good. I am so excited that I got a chance to at least ask a couple questions of you guys. And there's just a lot of people who really need hope when it comes to marriage, when it comes to commitment that goes beyond the rosy glow of attraction, and the fact that there's a beauty in having people to lean into. And I think we all know that hard times come. And if it's a transactional surface kind of relationship that's really based on short-term things, then it isn't going to be a place you can lean into when life is hard. I often say there were whole decades probably that I didn't want to brush my teeth, or I didn't want to pull myself up to be cheerful because things were hard, and my husband had my back through that time. But I don't think that happens without the kind of work that you guys do.
And that's a blessing to have a spouse that you know is going to be there for you in dark times. We've been there and we understand that.
Right. And I think that in the human heart, I believe that permanence is written on our heart, that a desire for permanence is written in our heart. And because of that, I think a lot of people will say, I'm good with just the short term, however long it's working. But I think when it's the other person's desire to be impermanent, then they have more of a trouble with it. So marriage in and of itself is an idea that you both desire permanence and you're willing to work on it. So it's an exciting thing for me to get to meet you guys and just kind of see a little bit behind what drives what you do. I'm going to have lots of information in the captions and in the areas below the videos that we'll post out there to make sure that they can find you and seek you out. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it.
We are honored.
We are.